My name's Pat Wally, and I'm on the coordinating team. And as most of you may know, but we rotate the chair every month. So February is my month to chair meetings. So I will try to keep things on track tonight. Uh, Certainly welcome everyone. And I know 2026 has started rather dramatically, but we'll hope we have some more positive news as we go forward. Okay, I am going to do, basically, I'm going to do a Manitoba land acknowledgement, but before colonialism in this land called Canada was lightly populated from coast to coast. Where you live will have different nations and treaties than where I do. In Manitoba, the treaties 1 to 5 are called numbered treaties and were negotiated and signed between 1871 and 1875. These treaties define the relationship between the Crown and the First Nations and remain constitutionally protected under the Constitution Act of 1982. The treaties promised the inherent rights of First Nations to maintain their own systems of governance, including selection of leadership and control over their own citizenship, trade, and spiritual beliefs. They had the right to shelter, children's welfare, land and resources, health, education, hunting, fishing, and trapping rights, justice, and an annual annuity. Unfortunately, there's much work needed for Canada and all of us to honor these treaties. 10 years ago, the Truth and Reconciliation Committee released their report. Many of its 94 calls to action have been worked on, but only 12 have been completed. We need to push for faster action on these calls. Where I live in Winnipeg, we are located on Treaty 1 territory and on the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and in the homeland of the Red River Métis Nation. We also like to acknowledge Treaty 3 territory in neighboring Ontario, where Shoal Lake lies, and we get our precious sacred water. We acknowledge our responsibility to these people and a responsibility to adhere to their many teachings, particularly those that protect our precious land. We offer our respect and gratitude to the traditional caretakers of this land, for we are all treaty people. Okay, so I would like to call on Michael to talk about a couple of exciting webinars that are in the works.
I'll do my best. Thanks, Pat. We had a webinar meeting today, and we're trying to finalize the details about 2 webinars. One was Stephen Girbeau, and we're going to try to reach out to him to try to find out what parameters he may be willing to discuss. We recognize that he's in a sort of interesting position of having left cabinet but still being part of the Liberal caucus. And we're hoping that he may meet with us as Seniors for Climate across the country to try to help define what some of the key issues are that we need to focus on over the coming year. So we're still in discussions about exactly what the format of that webinar would be, trying to have some respect for the limitations he may have and how far he could discuss policy since he's not part of the cabinet anymore. But he has this vast experience in his past pre-political state of having organized civil society actions on the environment in Quebec. So we think he might have some, it might be an interesting conversation for us to have with him about where Seniors for Climate fits into the action that is required to keep climate change moving forward, to keep it on the top of the agenda, considering especially how geopolitically, with our neighbors to the south and globally, things are shifting rapidly. So that's sort of we don't have a time frame for that because we need to speak to him about what his availability would be like, but it would be some time over February or March, because on April 8th we have Bill McKibben speaking to us, and he's sort of going to be the kickoff speaker for the events during Environment Week in June. And he's agreed to chat with us about, first of all, about what Third Act is doing in the United States, which is very similar to Seniors for Climate, of course, um, and and also about his most recent book, which is around concentrating on solar energy and renewables, and sort of laying out some hope for the future in terms of getting off of fossil fuels and moving us forward into a more renewable landscape. And so the format of that will be simply him talking and us having a chance to have questions for him. And that will lead us into a discussion about the activities that will happen in June. So that's the second webinar. Um, we also plan to have a webinar to kick off in the fall before fall events with Catherine Hayhoe. Um, you may know of her as a climate writer and activist in, I think she's in Texas. She's a Canadian, but she works at the university there. And she focuses a lot on um, the hope that one can have about turning things around and ensuring that climate change does not get worse than it already is. And that's a big challenge these days, and we're expecting to be able to have her sort of guide us in what kind of messaging will be really useful for the September actions. Um, and that'll be the third webinar. There was some discussion as well at our meeting about the possibility of having Jim Sanford from who is an economist and has quite a large knowledge base around climate change, especially around the just transition for workers. And we're in sort of initial discussions about whether we should do another webinar, which would be more of just a general educational webinar, and when that would happen. Which does raise a question about whether Seniors for Climate should be doing educational webinars or whether there's a better way in which to house those kinds of discussions around issues or uh, uh, policy development or directions that we think government should be taking. It's not sort of the essential role of Seniors for Climate, but there are people who are interested in having those kinds of discussions and whether we should be doing that or not. But Jim has expressed some interest in doing that on our behalf or with us. So we're going to explore that a little more. There's nothing definitive about that. So those are the sort of four possible things on the table with the webinar committee. But certainly keep April 8th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time in your books because that's when Bill McKibben is going to speak to us. I think that's it, Pat.
Great. Thank you very much. Now, Rolly has lots of exciting news for 2026.
Okay, I don't know how exciting it will be, but it's
Very
about our 2026 project. So I will start right now by sharing a screen. Excuse me. And right about now, you should be seeing a slide deck, which I
Yes.
will, excuse me, my voice, I'm losing my voice, which is it tells
Can
me
you-
that I was muted. I don't know why. Have you been hearing what I'm saying?
Yes,
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Only just that you said you were getting hoarse.
Yeah, okay. I have to stop sharing for a minute.
Rolly may not think this is very exciting, but he's been working on it he and his committee have been working on this for months. So he's gotten fairly, I think he feels he's overlearned it. But
All right. So now you should be seeing,
we are. Thank you.
and this front page is a design that our friend David Smith has done, and we use it every chance we get. Some of these are photos from our two actions or events in 2025. And so I'm using it for this presentation. And the title of the presentation, of course, is, as you can see at the top, Break Through the Climate Silence, tagline, Creating the Space for Action. This is the theme or the name of our 2026 project. And this first presentation will be followed by another presentation at the next organizers meeting. This one focuses on the part of the project or the campaign for 2026. That is what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And there's a companion, this is a large document, and there's a companion document that focuses strictly on communications and media and social media and earned media and all those not tactics, but mechanisms that we use to communicate during the year. So as I said, I'm just going to move forward with this portion, and we'll take questions at the end. So the next slide is why does this matter? Breaking through the climate silence, and what is the climate silence all about? So why it matters and why now? Because research shows that the strongest predictor of climate action is not the concern that we have. Just have to move this over a little bit. Concern that we have or the knowledge that we have about climate change and global warming and so on. It's whether people talk about climate change. I mean, we can know everything about climate, but if nobody's talking about it, then of course we have a problem. And it matters now because Canada's political and climate reality have shifted and continues to shift almost on a daily basis. Meanwhile, climate impacts are escalating, and yet our conversation is shrinking even as our concern keeps growing. When climate action stalls, then climate conversation stalls as well. And this whole project makes the point that it's the silence, not the apathy, that is the core problem. So we'll go through that in more detail. And so how does silence work? I mean, you're all familiar with many of the some of the social movements that have been based on breaking the silence, but this is about breaking through the climate silence. So it's a bit different. It's got a bit of a different connotation than just breaking the silence. But how does it work? Because I've just said climate concern is high, but public expression is pretty mute or held back. Why do we hold back? Canadians dramatically underestimate how much others care. Recent research shows that. We all think that we're alone in our concern, and yet many other people feel the same way. So when we feel alone, conversation shuts down, obviously. Whoops, I got too far. This leads to a spiral of silence. And when you're in a spiral of silence, this weakens public pressure, it erodes political courage, and at the same time, it leaves a gap allowing misinformation and greenwashing and the fossil fuel narratives to prevail. And all of this silence has consequences. And our goal with this campaign or with this project is to reopen the climate conversation. So we've identified 4 pillars. There probably are others, but these are the 4 pillars of interconnected silences, if you wish, that we want to break through, that we must break through in order to get meaningful climate action at a time when we really need it. So the first one is the silence around the reality of the crisis. Oops. The second is the silence created by misinformation and disinformation. We could throw greenwashing in there as well. The third one is the silence around the opportunity and the possibility of the renewable energy transition. And the fourth one is the silence in politics and leadership. And I'm going to go into a little bit more detail for each of these 4 buckets of or pillars of silence. So the first one is the silence around the reality of the climate crisis. So the reality about the climate crisis goes largely unspoken. We have the climate impacts are escalating, we have extreme heat, wildfire smoke from last summer, and we're sure we'll be getting that again this summer, floods, the rising food insecurity and food costs and insurance costs. Fear, grief, anxiety, that stays private. We're not really, we feel the climate, but we don't say it, we don't talk about it. And many feel too scared or too polite. We're very polite as Canadians, too polite to talk about it with friends or people on the street or family members. So we end up internalizing our concern rather than sharing it. And climate just becomes something people feel. They don't say much about it. So that's the one pillar that we want to do something about. The second one I've already mentioned is the silence created by misinformation. This is characterized by fossil fuel messaging, greenwashing, and strategic political spin by some politicians and some parties to flood the narrative, the public space with confusion, false narratives, false solutions, and delay tactics. And when nothing feels true or clear, or people wonder if what the truth is, well, they just disengage. It's too complicated. It's confusing. So this confusion leads to paralysis. And in the face of all of that, it's very easy to just, stay silent. It's really quite an easy response. And the third is around the opportunity and the possibility. And this particular silence is really invisible. And it's really about the renewable energy transition that is happening. It's the fastest energy transition in history, faster than any other transition in the past, whether it was the coal, transition to coal or oil, but this is the fastest ever in history. Renewable energy is expanding rapidly, costs are falling, and investment is accelerating globally. At COP28, which was not that successful, but this did come out of COP28, which is good. 130 countries, including Canada, committed to tripling renewables and also increasing their energy efficiency by 2030. And yet, in spite of all this is happening all around the world. Most Canadians are unaware of the scale, the speed, and the actual inevitability of this transition. This is going to happen. It's happening right now. Nothing will stop it. It reinforces the false belief this silence, the fact that people don't know about it. It reinforces the false belief that climate solutions are far off in the future. They're unfair, unaffordable, unrealistic, and even as they're already being deployed at scale and happening all around the world. We have China doing more on renewable energy, producing more solar panels than the rest of the world, than all of the world did in 2023, I think it was. So we're unaware of the scale, the speed, again, as I said, and the fact that this is inevitable and irreversible. And the big risk in all of this is the fact that we list Canada risks falling behind and missing the opportunities by moving too slowly. And I think all of us will agree that we are moving way too slowly on the opportunity and the possibility of playing a leadership role, and all of the advantages that would bring to Canada and to Canadians. And the fourth pillar is the one dealing with the silence of our politicians and politics and climate leadership. This is a growing problem. It is spreading. And this is happening at precisely the moment when leadership is most needed. Climate is being downplayed, it's avoided, or it's even buried in the euphemisms that we hear all the time about nation building projects and capturing carbon out of the air and small nuclear reactors and all these competing priorities. And this gives the wrong signals that climate is just too risky or optional. They're not talking about it, our politicians. When was the last time you heard Prime Minister mention climate change? I haven't heard it very often. So yeah, this gives the wrong signal to the public that climate is optional. And this avoidance at the top, whether it's at the provincial level or the premiers of our provinces or any elected officials, municipal as well, this avoidance at the top normalizes avoidance everywhere. So public silence follows political silence. And one could argue that this is about democracy and clarity and accountability. So these are the four kinds of silences that we're going to be addressing and working on as part of this campaign or this project that we're undertaking. Just before I go forward, this is one slide about what we as seniors can bring, can try to open up. If there's a silence, a crisis, or a climate silence, how can we open it up? How can we make it easier and socially acceptable to tell the truth about what we're living through by naming what we feel and what we're seeing? So seniors, and there are about 7 or 8 bullets here. For each one of those pillars, there are a series of bullet points like this that illustrate how we seniors will open up opportunities and open up conversation across all 4 pillars. So again, by making it easier and socially acceptable to tell the truth and not being afraid to tell the truth, we're going to work on replacing confusion with clarity by normalizing conversation instead of avoidance. We're going to make visible the global momentum behind renewables so that all Canadians can learn about this and start asking their politicians about why we're not jumping on this train that is going by. We're going to reframe the energy transition as a nation-building opportunity, not a sacrifice. We're going to name and shame greenwashing and false solutions every opportunity we can, whether it's by op-eds, letters to the editor, social media, blog pieces, and so on. We're going to remind Canadians every chance we get that the real risk is not moving too fast, it's falling behind. And that's the one I fear the most, because I, like many of you, have grandchildren who are just going to be entering the job market. And we're going to insist on clarity, honesty, and leadership, as well as accountability. So this is what we're going to be doing a lot of, and we'll go into how we're going to do this and how we're going to talk about this in a future presentation. But moving on to the next slide for now. So this is a bit repetitious, but the objectives of the project this year are to normalize everyday climate conversation, and so that can become a foundation for all our community action and to foster political courage. We're going to be mobilizing local action in 100 plus communities during Environment Week, which is in June, and also a major September mobilization, which we have some ideas about as well, which we will be discussing with organizers. We will be amplifying senior voices nationally through some storytelling and media. We started doing a few video clips before the Christmas break, and those did quite well on social media. We're going to continue to build cross-sector partnerships with seniors serving health, faith, and community organizations. And we're going to constructively influence decision makers through not confrontational, but respectful dialogue and visible public engagement. So these are the components of the project, the different action pieces, if you wish, action streams. The first one will be National Let's Talk Climate Day during Environment Week. And what that is about basically is a coordinated national movement with community events. And there's a whole list of community events, many of which, of course, you're all familiar with, and some of which you will be doing that are not even on our list. Climate cafes, walk and talks, storytelling corners, intergenerational dialogues, different types of media visible activities. So this will be during Environment Week, and we're going to start gearing up for that very, very soon, probably with a lot more detail at the next February organizers meeting. There will be a September engagement, and the theme will probably be leaders, let's talk climate. And this is going to be an engagement wave with politicians. We're going to have synchronized actions at MP offices and meeting, I can't see the rest of those words, and meeting requests, open letters, phone-ins, public conversations, and so on. And this is going to be, again, focused on conversation, not confrontation. And the idea here, for example, is to have as many locations as possible. It'd be nice to have all 100 locations. Do something, show up in front of their member of parliament's office, or do something that, to pressure politicians to continue to keep the spotlight on climate. Excuse me. And this will be during September. Now, another thing that is happening in September, Bill McKibben of Here Comes the Sun, the third act in the States, that organization is going global. And there's a very strong likelihood that there will be a global fall action. So we're going to want to be looking at that as well. And the other 3, 4, and 5 here are not really actions as such. It's just ongoing things that we're always doing. National Conversation Challenge. We might launch a challenge at some point in time, for example, through an e-blast to our 5,000 on our communications list, to have a conversation or 3 or 4 conversations during the year with neighbors and friends and family and so on. We know that local actions, climate actions, are always ongoing, but some of you never stop. You just don't. In between the large nationwide events, you have other things going on. So we hope to be able to support that as well. And as I previously mentioned, we want to video record as many testimonies from seniors and video clips, stories of strength, stories of courage, and as well as stories of victories that we're identifying and doing. So finally, I noticed a hand or 2 that are up, but I'm just gonna, this is a slide that I feel strongly about. why breakthrough plus creating the space for action works. And it works, in my view, it works very well. So because together they form like a two-step moral logic. Breakthrough, it's a bold and urgent call to cut through the confusion, the misinformation, all the political spin that's out there. And all of this is holding Canada back. And we want to break through because it acknowledges resistance, it acknowledges denial, gridlock, and fear. And creating the space, well, that's a very, very constructive unifying message that invites conversations, that invites solutions, leadership, shared actions, and of course, hope. And that, Pat, is the slides that I'm presenting. I can stay there or come back to it, but for now, I'll just stop sharing and
Yeah,
go from there.
let's have a few minutes of conversation. Of course, we're always running late, but that's okay. Brent. I think it's Brent. I'm blind.
Yes, it's Brett.
Brett, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm used to it. I've had it for 70 years now.
Yep.
When Brett Hall came on the scene, it got much better though.
Okay, no, it was just I didn't have my glasses on, so I was.
Oh, I can relate to that one. I can relate to that one. There was no mention of Earth Day in the list of activities, and I didn't understand that.
The coordinating committee and steering committee decided this year for the spring or the first of the two national events that it would be during Environment Week. That was a suggestion, a dream, David Smith, and maybe I'll ask him to make a few comments about that. But it has to do with the fact that there are some very large groups out there, organizations that are focused on the environment and nature and outdoors and gardening and so on, that don't really shine the light on climate that much. And the thinking was that if we can bring some of those folks on side to the climate movement, there would be a huge advantage in doing that. I don't know if you wanted to add to that, David?
Yeah, thanks, Rolly. So there was feedback that we received from the various locations last year. Some of the locations thought it was too early in the year for outdoor events, particularly where it is cold and or wet. And so that's why the idea of the Canadian Environmental Week came up. And I think we've talked about it in the last two meetings. And there did seem to be support for moving our event to the Environmental Week in 2026.
So is that something I've never heard of Environment Week, I think, or the Climate Week? It sounds like a great idea, but is this a new term? Or
No,
is it
it's been going on, I believe, for well over 20 years.
Excellent.
It also coincides with Canada Ocean Week, which is an event that Nature Canada celebrates. And I think Laurie Goldman put in the chat, it also corresponds with Seniors Day or Seniors Week in a number of provinces across Canada as well.
Oh, very good. Very good. The word euphemism is been used a couple times. Once in that document, there was a comment in the document sent out that climate change is being buried beneath euphemisms like competitiveness and affordability, and I don't think that's really fair. Is getting buried, but those aren't euphemisms. Those are real realities for people, especially the affordability one. A euphemism would be is a different sort of term where you've downplayed the significance of something by using some other term. Affordability is a major issue for a lot of Canadians, so I don't think we want to downplay it. The problem being we're getting lost in the shuffle would be the way I would phrase it, or that climate change has lost importance because of people's concerns about competitiveness, affordability. So I just, I was questioning the use of euphemism there.
Well, that's feedback we'll take in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What
Okay.
you made a comment in that document that this leaves Canadians feeling isolated. The fact that there isn't a conversation about climate. What percentage of Canadians would you say, are feeling isolated? Is it 20%, 25%? I certainly don't see it being a high percentage, but I don't see it being low either, sort of a moderate percentage. The way the sentence is written, it's sort of like all Canadians are feeling isolated, and I don't think all Canadians are, but
We can qualify
of,
that a bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brett, can I go on? We've got several other speakers, so.
Okay, I'll
Okay.
pass.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Nancy?
Well, thank you, Rolly, for this. Thank you for this overview. I think it's very helpful in terms of describing the context that we're facing in many ways. I do think that we have to put into this conversation, I know we are nonpartisan, but there is a leadership campaign going on in the NDP. And Abby Lewis, who is the author of the LEAP Manifesto, the Green New Deal, is running for the leadership of the NDP, and very much on a platform that connects affordability with a green and climate initiatives. This is important. If Abby Lewis manages to win the leadership of the NDP, they will have a leadership in Canada that is fighting to address the climate crisis, and that will make a difference, because the fact is all of our political parties right now are supporting an expansion of fossil fuels, apart from the Greens. So I think we need to talk about this. I think in analyzing the political context in which we are working, it's really important that we talk about a major development for leadership of the NDP that is openly and fighting for addressing the climate crisis and the affordability crisis. So that's one point. The other point is, of course, SCAN has a campaign around targeting MP offices. We've been doing this for a couple of months now. We hope that it will build momentum. It'd be great if Seniors to Climate were on board with this. But I think, I don't know, I see Nick's on the call. I'm sure you're doing some work around coordinating between SCAN and Seniors to Climate. So we talked in our meeting that we just had about also coordinating a national day of action for a call-in. So that's a strategy I think that we can pursue as well. Thanks.
Pat, I'll just respond to that very quickly. The September action that I spoke of very briefly, Nancy, would focus exactly on that. A day of action. It could be a call-in. It could be a combination of a call-in and also a gathering in front of the members of Parliament offices all across Canada. So that's part of the fall action. It doesn't stop. That doesn't stop doing something before that. But that was the thinking around the September fall action, as opposed to a campaign like we did last year with Draw the Line, just to be more focused on hands-on writing by writing by writing. With right now with 100 locations, we reach about 170 ridings. So we're actually have boots on the ground in 170 ridings.
Well, why wait until September, quite frankly? I mean, we've already initiated doing this with SCAN. I see no reason to leave this until September. I think we need to build momentum. I'm concerned about maintaining that momentum. And I don't understand why wait until September. I can say, call it a month off from now or 6 weeks off from now, but September? Really? It's very clear what the Carney government is doing. We need action on this, and we need to expose what the Carney government is doing as well, because I don't think, it's generally known. And a day of action like this would also help to inform the public about what the government is doing. I would move it way ahead from September.
Okay, thank you for that feedback.
Okay. Anne, you've been waiting patiently.
Oh, I've been listening.
Okay.
Let me put my hand down. My reaction to the idea that Seniors for Climate should jump from being a nonpartisan organization to taking a role in support of Avi Lewis's campaign is the same as it was when this was being discussed in the national organization of the national part of the Council of Canadians. I'm opposed in this kind of movement to being partisan in any way, but I can see that it is important to talk about the fact that politicians, that we need political leaders who are not afraid to talk about climate and climate action. And I can see that, being framed in such a way that it could be useful to the Avi Lewis campaign or any other politician. So I'm just going to leave that for now. There's something more, there's something more that's bothering me about our group and about this proposal to move to World Environment Week and Canadian Environment Day. That comes out of all of your slides there, Raleigh. It's a euphemism for climate in this case, to call it environment. And I've had some experience working with local schools here and people who are not very political about climate, who care about it or whatever. And I frequently get stuck into the I frequently find us stuck into the situation where children, but even adults, are talking about recycling and eating less meat. Which are environmental actions. They're also going to help the climate, but they're not addressing climate directly. And curiously, we had I'm not pointing fingers at all, because last night we had a meeting of our group to talk about our plans for at least the first half of 2026. And by our group, I mean the Kitchissippi Ottawa Valley chapter of the Council of Canadians, whose major project the last couple of years has been our Climate Matters Action Group. And we ended up thinking in terms of, we kept sliding into that same thing of not addressing climate directly. And all the wonderful points that you had in your little slideshow, Raleigh. But more talking about, how do we talk about this with people, and, concern for the environment and concern for the natural world and that sort of thing. So I'm just saying there's a contradiction there. There's a contradiction that I note really clearly from our own experience, comparing our own discussions yesterday and you know, some of the compromises or ideas we came up with, plus this whole notion of having a particular, moving the thing to World Environment Day. I think it's going to end up being watered down in a lot of places on environment issues like saving the turtles. Not that I'm opposed to saving the turtles, but, you know, obviously. But, and then the other thing is that one thing that we did come up with, I just want to leave this here. One of the things that we did come up with is that I've been so depressed about the state of international affairs in the world and everything the last while that I started finally reading this book that I got that Andrew Boyd wrote called I Want a Better Catastrophe. In it, I found out about the Ribbon Project. And I don't know if other people are familiar with the Ribbon Project, but we did decide that we're going to modify that and go forward with it as a project. So yeah, I like World Water Day too, but that's very soon. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. And if people, you know, you can research the Ribbon Project. That the way they did it is not how we're going to do it. And in fact, we're going to incorporate the libraries and climate cafes and community organizations. And we're going to talk, I don't know if we'll use what they say as the intro, which is what do I absolutely not want to lose, but more, what do I really want to save? Is probably more the angle that we're going to go at the Ribbon Project with. So I'll just leave it there.
Thank you, Anne. I'll take a couple, let's keep it real short, please, Nick.
Yep. So first thing is that just to assure people that Seniors for Climate is made up of a number of organizations, and each of us has our own initiatives, as well as the common initiative that we're involved in discussing today. So we are sharing what we're doing. Each group is sharing with each other, and wherever we can cooperate, we will, etc. So just wanted to explain that. And the second thing is, the advantage this year is we actually have a plan through the year where we'll work together in different ways as the different organizations. So that's the way it's seen, culminating in terms of September, mobilizing everybody throughout, across the country, etc. But in the meantime, each of us is taking initiatives, and we're sharing those initiatives with each other.
Okay, Michael?
Yeah, just quickly, I think Nancy's point is well taken, that any initiatives that we can do to reach out to MPs now is critical. Faster the better. And I think the campaign that SCAN is engaged in is something that could be shared, obviously, with all of our communities, and if people pick up on it now, that's great. But I think the idea of doing a blitz pretty much on the, within the same few days across the country could be a good culmination of work that, in fact, is already started with MPs' offices now. So I think it is true that we should be doing something fast and now, but we also can use the larger event, which hopefully will get some recognition in the media as a way of blitzing it in September. That's one thing. The second thing quickly was that I think we were very successful on October 1st of reframing Seniors Day. We took over Seniors Day and changed it. We reframed what it meant, and I think we can do the same thing with Environment Week.
What?
That we can turn this into a climate action using something that people are familiar with, but they actually don't see the bigger picture. And I think we have the capability of turning that around and changing, reframing and changing what Environment Week means in Canada. So that it's not so wishy-washy the way Seniors Day it used to be until we took it over. So those are my two comments.
Okay, thank you. And we'll certainly take all of that under advisement. And perhaps what we have talked about, Nick, sharing the information on what they're doing with SCAN. Perhaps that if folks are interested, they could just drop a line to admin at Seniors for Climate, and we can get that information out to you. Okay. Rob Hill has a suggestion he would like to run by us, and I will turn it over to Rob.
Thank you, Pat. Um, yeah, this is just an idea that I'd like to present to you. It should take about 5 or 6 minutes. Because I wanted to be as clear as possible and get through this quickly, I've got a script through for the first part of this at least. Um, there may be some time for questions and more casual a little bit later. I live in Camrose, which is 100 kilometers southeast of Edmonton. Camrose is the biggest community in Pierre Poilievre's riding. It's conservative, it's pro-oil. I'm going to make a suggestion about what I think Seniors for Climate may choose to do this year and let you know why I think it would be a good idea. I wrote this script yesterday because I want to be clear. But it's really interesting to me how neatly it seems to fit into what Rolly was telling us about. Uh, I'll let you know that you may think what I'm going to say is kind of nonsense. That's okay. I live in a community surrounded by people who think that all the time. The following will be from my small town, rural Alberta perspective. And I was listening to Brett saying that he didn't think really there's a lot of people that feel isolated. I'd recommend that he come down and visit me here, 100 kilometers away from him. He'll find quite a different perspective, I think. So, over the past 2 years, there have been some well-attended Seniors for Climate public rallies, rallies in parks, rallies, marches along Main Street. These occur largely, it seems to me, in larger cities. Vancouver and Toronto get big ones. Such activities cannot happen in Camrose or most small communities across Canada. Even I wouldn't attend a climate rally in Camrose. In larger cities, there are a lot of people who think like Seniors for Climate supporters. In small communities, not so much. In every small community, there are people who are aware and concerned about climate, but they often feel isolated, alone, and powerless. If the role of Seniors for Climate is largely to support public demonstrations, these people, and that I believe is most of Canada, are left out. During the summer of 2024, when Seniors for Climate local organizations were planning activities, I considered organizing a rally here in Camrose, but it was obvious that it couldn't happen. Instead, I initiated a petition in Camrose calling on the federal government to step up action on climate. I will tell you why I think it was a success and why I think Seniors for Climate should consider carrying out a nationwide climate petition. By the way, some of you may know that these days Alberta is petition central. That is a separate but somewhat related issue. There's about 50 different petitions going on around Alberta right now. All small town newspapers are looking for free content. And in 2021, I was able to provide 2 articles about our petition in our local paper. One article included the text of the petition. That led to an energetic exchange of letters to the editor, so the petition got attention. If a paper petition gets 100 signatures, the MP will present the petition in Parliament. We had backlash against our MP, telling him he should not present the climate petition to Parliament. So he was dragged into the public discussion. I had a table at our local library to collect signatures, and I became engaged in some interesting exchanges. This included people who were grateful for the opportunity to sign on to a message of hope about climate. They felt they were making a meaningful, albeit small, gesture. There are many who think, why bother? There is nothing I can do. Well, here's something. It was good. We did generate a conversation in our community. Ultimately, our MP did present our petition to Parliament, and supporters do feel good about that. So I think Seniors for Climate should consider how we could carry out a national petition. I'll come straight out and say, here is the biggest challenge. I have been finding it very difficult to reach those folks in neighboring communities who are currently feeling isolated and discouraged. But if we can reach into those communities, the payoff is that through our efforts, we could engage people who are currently disengaged, raise awareness, and start conversations in communities where currently there are none. I think it would be worth the effort. So this morning, when I received the information about the organizers meeting yesterday that had the pillars that Rolly was talking about, I said, okay, if you did a petition, how could you take the ideas that Rolly is expressing and put them into the body of the petition? And I did that, and I passed it on to Dave, and he might be able to let you see what my quick thoughts were. They're just quick thoughts. But here's the thing. We want to send a message about silence and opportunities and engagement and so on, as Rolly was sort of suggesting. I think those are good ideas. You can, if you get an article in a small town paper, you can probably get the wording of that in there. So that expresses some ideas. Yeah, you may be able to post on bulletin boards, either in small communities or in large communities in your neighborhood, in libraries and some other places, cafes that have a bulletin board. You might be able to present a little poster that says, would you sign on to this petition? And provide the text of the petition and say that there's a signing opportunity, maybe at Maggie's Cafe on Main Street, Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. You'd get people come in. You get people to look at those petitions. You could do the same thing on social media feeds or social media platforms and communities. There's a petition. Here's the wording of the petition. Would you like to sign on to it? Here's where you can sign on to it. And so on. You can get conversations going. You can present in black and white a brief, but I think important message, and one that relates to what Rolly was suggesting. There.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you, Rob. Well, I'm going to suggest, rather than having everyone comment, that you put something in the chat about whether you'd be interested in the chat, or to admin, whether you'd be interested in a petition, and we will work on the wording if people are interested. Okay, thank you. All right. Dave was going to speak briefly about a workshop.
Thank you, Pat. Just to be clear, if you can put in the chat, if you're interested in the having a petition for Canadian Environmental Week, then please do so. And I think we'll come back before the next meeting with a suggested petition, and then maybe we can have a discussion at the next meeting. So either in the chat or send an email to admin@seniorsforclimate.org. The workshop that Pat alluded to, last year we had a workshop on tactics, and I think it was just before the September 20th event. And the idea was to talk about different things that could be done at an event. So it seemed to play out really well last year. And there's a number of different ideas floating around already about things we could at least discuss at a workshop. So things like, Rolly mentioned a walk and talk, but we've also said, you could have a walkathon, a seniors walkathon, where people could, walk for 20 minutes as part of a thing, part of a fundraiser, perhaps, where seniors or other people who don't have air conditioning, and maybe raise enough money to be able to buy air conditioning. So instead of addressing, especially in communities where it's not comfortable to talk about climate, maybe in some of those communities you could have a fundraiser to provide money for a social good as an indirect way of drawing attention to climate. So there's lots of different ideas. There's sing-alongs, there's dance-a-thons. We could go on for some time, but the question is, are people interested in having a workshop like that again this year? And so again, if you could say, I'm interested in the workshop in the chat, or send an email to admin@seniorsforclimate.org, we'll tally the number. And if there's enough interest, we'll schedule a workshop. That's what I wanted to say, Pat.
How about you talk about the workshop or working meeting for the rural and small city groups?
Yeah. So we also had one meeting towards the end of last year talking about small rural and remote communities, because as Rob has pointed out, and several other people, if you're in a particularly conservative riding where people are not focused on climate at all and are more concerned with making enough to get by rather than having the luxury of being able to focus on broader social issues, that's a special area. And we did have one meeting, as I said, at the end of last year. We're talking about having another meeting, but once again, if people are interested. So if you are interested in that, please, again, put your name in the chat for small, rural, and remote, because the chat's going to get pretty busy right now, I think. Or again, send an email to admin@seniorsforclimate.org. That's it, Pat.
Thank you. And I know I have fall action on the agenda, but we've sort of talked about that, and it's still certainly a work in progress. But Nick has something that's pressing at this point that he wanted to talk about. So Nick, I'll let you talk about that Bill C-15.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to share a set of slides, and hopefully that'll work. Can you see that okay?
Yes, thank
All
you.
right. So this is a little known development, and it's buried in the budget, the federal budget. It's a bill called C-15, euphemistically named Acting to Preserve Civil and Environmental Protections, Democracy, and the Rule of Law. In fact, it's not civil, it's not protective, it's not democratic, and it's above the law, and I'm going to explain why. So this bill would allow cabinet ministers to exempt any person, I'm going to read this to you because it's relevant, any person, organization, or government entity from existing federal legislation representing it inapplicable to them, except for the criminal code. Any project considered to encourage innovation, competitiveness, or economic growth, if that minister considers it to be in the public interest. Public interest is not defined. Any type of activity could be exempted by a minister, activities such as nuclear, oil and gas, chemical, mining, pharmaceutical industries, etc., or anything else the minister considers appropriate. So this gives a radically new discretionary power to very few selected people, cabinet ministers, to decide how and when federal legislation applies and to whom or not. Exemptions, there's a further thing, exemptions granted on any terms considered appropriate is, as I mentioned that before, it's not defined, but in fact, they've passed legislation or included in legislation sorry, let me just mention one more thing. It could cover things like environmental assessment, protection, treaty rights, labor law, access to information, privacy, safety of food, drugs, and the list goes on because there's no limit to it. And built into this law is, in fact, protection against any legal action that could be taken against government officials who actually exercise this. So it's a real problem because it's buried inside, I think, of the 300 pages. It's somewhere in the middle, and it really does heighten the risk of improper lobbying, corruption by people, corporations acting to obtain such exemptions. So we're looking to, and this is an example of member organizations cooperating. This initiative that SCAN took. To the objective is the federal government to immediately withdraw this section of Bill C-15. And and that all other political parties refuse to adopt Bill C-15 until the section's withdrawn. So we need to move quickly because before the bill is adopted, which might happen by earlier mid-February, and we're trying to get other environmental and social justice organizations to join with us. There is going to be a draft press release, which is going to be available if you want it. We'd be interested in people signing on to it, passing it on to others, etc. And we'll have a letter to an MP, your MP, that you can send to your MP. We also have available a draft of the press release, a brief on the bill, and excerpts from the bill, which will be helpful, I think, to you. So this is Seniors for Climate has endorsed this initiative, and so we're asking you if you want more information on this to contact us through Seniors for Climate, and at the address admin@seniorsforclimate.org. If you want to sign on, if you want more information, and please pass on the word. So I'll leave it at that. I don't know if we have time for questions or not, Pat, but I'll stop there.
Well, I think we can take a couple, and this was initiated by SCAN, but for folks' information, but certainly they've done a lot of work on it.
So I'm going to stop sharing here.
Jeff, do you have a question?
More a comment than a question. I think that rather than leave it for people to get in touch if they think it makes sense, I think I would ask that the directing committee turn this into a letter writing campaign sooner rather than later, because as I understand it, this could be voted on as early as February the 15th. So it's not something we can say, well, let's talk about it next month, because next month will be simply too late. So I think Nick and I have had some discussion on this, but can you imagine the only exemption is the criminal code, and any minister who may be under the table or inadvertently says, I thought it was in the best interest of Canada, and so the $2 or $3 million I got from my campaign seemed like a logical thing to do. And you imagine what a Pierre Poilievre government would do with that. So I mean, regardless of the government in power, it's a temptation that's simply too rich to allow to be left in place. That's my comment.
Yeah, and I think that we could maybe do something with that, Rolly. Is it possible to do a letter, send the information to folks for a letter writing campaign?
I was just making a note to that effect, and that would be we could send an e-blast, for example, to our 5,000 contacts. So I was just making a note to that effect, and I was going to bring it back to coordinating committee on Friday, but yeah, I think that's very doable.
Okay.
Great.
Well, I think it's certainly a worthwhile endeavor, and we need to be making noise about it.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. And I'm going to call on Dave again to talk briefly about we have a number of positions that we're looking for folks to help with on the national team. So Dave, could you speak on that, please?
Thank you, Pat. And I'm going to start off by saying, just imagine how wonderful it would be if we had all the money that fossil fuel industries had to be able to hire this army of people that do things like spend all their days putting out social media posts and paying for advertisements and articles in traditional media on radio and TV, and having an army of people who are lobbying in Ottawa and all the provinces. Wouldn't it be wonderful? I think it'd be fantastic. And I mean, they sponsor things, right? So they get into communities and they do things like bursaries and they sponsor sports teams. And you want a speaker for your event, we're willing to send you a speaker. So there's so many different ways that they've gotten into every corner of society with all their money. We don't have that money. But one of the things we do have is we have a lot of people who have a whole career's worth of knowledge. And so what we can do is really leverage that because we know stuff, and that stuff is really powerful. So I'm hoping that whether you yourselves or any of the people from the groups that you're involved with, if they're interested in getting a little bit more involved, we have at the national team some requirements for helping people or organizing support. Those are the people that help the various locations get things up and running. Outreach, trying to get more supporters involved, or other groups, or the communications. So all the stuff that you see coming from Rolly, there's a team of people working on that in the background. And our social media, that's all stuff that goes on in the background that people work on. So whether you have a little bit of time or even a lot of time, like just half a day a week makes a huge difference. Like you can do stuff in 4 hours and do something wonderful. Like I'm not artistic, but give me 4 hours and I can put together a reasonably good looking social media post. And if there are people out there at this meeting, or anybody who's watching the video, because we know lots of people watch the video afterwards, if you have some time that you're willing to contribute to the national team, that would be great. We are also going to be appealing to our supporters. Like I said, there's I think 44,701 supporters on our list as of this morning. So there are people out there who have careers in advertising, musicians. And one of the things that, really gets me is how powerful jingles are. If we had a 15-second jingle that we could somehow wrangle into getting on radio stations for free as a community service announcement or something like that, and get it played a few times so it starts rattling through people's heads, I mean, that would be powerful. So we are going to be sending out some of these special project requests to our supporters, asking them if they would like to get involved in doing stuff like this. Another idea that this came about as a result of feedback you gave us last year, which was having some national thing that could be done from coast to coast. And so one of the things that we could do is if there was a play, right? If we had like a 2-person play that could be done for half an hour, you could build an event around that. So that's one of the ideas that we could be talking about at this workshop on tactics. So whether you know people or you yourselves are interested in contributing at the national level, please let us know. We will have some position descriptions to kind of describe at a fairly high level what people do. And again, you don't have to have an awful lot of hours available in your week to be able to make a meaningful contribution. And we'll be sending these notes out to our supporters as well. That's what I want to say for now, Pat.
Great, thank you. And suddenly I realize we have almost 15 minutes left. And I'm looking for maybe some other business or other discussion that folks might have. Michael.
I just have a quick piece of information. You'll be receiving an email over the next few days about another initiative that one of the sponsoring groups, a Climate Action for Later Life Learning, CALL, is putting on a 8-week educational online course with Dr. Martin Bush, who is on an environmentalist, but he's also on the education committee of SCAN. And he's been working with CALL on the development of this 8-week course, which will be held starting February 17th and going for the 8 weeks. I think it's going to be, I can't remember the time. I think it's at 6:30 p.m. I think it's this sort of standard time because it's 4 across the country. And it's meant for both sort of a moment to sort of sit back and get the current information about what's going on about the climate. And it's also meant for folks who are sort of on the edge of our movement, people we know who are concerned about the climate but really don't know that much. So we're hoping that you will amplify this course and to try to get more people engaged. And the timing of the course is to bring us up to the spring events as well. So we're trying to work everything together so that this becomes another one of the tools that we have to engage people. But you'll be getting all of that by email in the next few days.
Michael, I have a question about that. Will it be recorded? So if you can't attend, you
Yes,
can pick up?
it's recorded and the recording's available for a week after each class. And it's an hour and a half, the class is. It's about 40 minutes of lecture presentation and question and answer period. And that's broken into two parts during the hour and a half.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments, discussion that folks would like to put out for the country? Well, we do also suggest our next meeting is February 10th. And I hope you can all attend. And Jeff,
Just following up on Nick's initiative there. Nick, are you looking for groups to add on to be endorsers of the initiative? In which case, that should go out by the coordinating committee to seek as many organizations across the country to give that support, because that's the kind of stuff that really has some traction when it gets in the hands of the politicians, that they can see that there's a very broad basis, not just 15 people, but there's maybe 45 organizations, which are who knows how big.
Yeah, so just quickly can answer that, Pat.
sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was thinking. So we'll send out the background material. We'll send out the press release. We'll be asking people to sign on to that press release and get in touch with us. And we'll also send out a draft letter that you can use, or adjust as you choose to MPs. So that'll be, assuming we go ahead, which I think we are, we'll make sure that gets out to everybody. Thank you.
Can that also go to our sponsors and
I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, Lucien? You're on mute. There we go.
I'm sorry I missed the first part of this meeting, but I live in Alberta, and we're within the Beaver Hills Biosphere, the United Nations designated biosphere, and we have a foundation that has been very active in tree planting, and we decided, along with several partners, including counties and provincial government, to do a tree planting event to line up with the June Environment Week, and to appeal to seniors organizations to kind of connect with the event. It would be kind of a significant event. So now the important thing is it's in Pierre Poilievre's writing. So I just leave you with that, more political astutes to reflect on that and the significance this event might have. So, okay, next time.
Well, could you please send us the information on your event and keep us informed? Again, you're on mute. I'm sorry.
Unmute.
There you
Yes,
go.
of course. You get that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Lydia.
Hi. I just wanted to ask, do you want all of our events? We've met with our local group here, and we have a couple of ideas. So if you just want us to send it to the admin.
That would be helpful. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And we'll keep Dave busy. Now, we had planned the meeting is officially over.